5A, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. The clerk will please read the next measure.
Senate Bill 545 relating to reuse of containers and declaring an emergency.
We already read it, so recognize Senator Sollman.
Mr. President, colleagues, I rise today in support of Senate Bill 545A, a bill that directs Oregon Health Authority to adopt rules and sanitary direction to allow businesses and restaurants to establish safe systems for refilling consumer-owned and business-owned containers with food. I have heard from numerous constituents who have wanted the opportunity to reduce their consumption of single-use plastics by taking their own containers to a retail grocery store and restaurants rather than having to grab a new plastic tub or bag every time they buy bulk food or getting another single-use take-home container. Similarly, I have heard from businesses frustrated by codes that currently restrict their ability to safely establish a reuse and refill system for their customers. Last summer, I held a listening session attended by over 42 Oregon businesses, all asking for the rulemaking. Reuse systems have proven not only to cut down on plastic pollution and waste, but can significantly save businesses money. $24 billion is spent by restaurants and food service businesses on disposables each year in the United States. The Oregon Department of Agriculture just completed their rulemaking last month for allowable containers and safety rules in grocery stores. However, the Oregon Health Authority that oversees the rules for restaurants is just a bit behind ODA in their process, and this bill will ensure that the rulemaking is completed by June 30th, 2024. Once OHA's rules are adopted, restaurants will have the option to allow customers to bring their own containers for filling leftovers or not. Some restaurants currently contract with outside vendors to provide reusable, returnable, go-to-go container service. This policy will actually allow them to bring that service in-house and potentially save the restaurant money. This policy, once through OHA's rulemaking, is completely permissive. It is up to the restaurant, but the rules and safety guidance will be solidly put in place should they choose to do so. This bill is not so overly prescriptive, of allowing OHA to go through rulemaking as they choose, with the end goal being to allow refillable containers in restaurants. Colleagues, this bill is an important tool in our efforts to reduce single-use plastics, a concept that I'm especially passionate about. On this day, after Rise Above Plastic Pollution Day, I urge you to join me in passing this bill that will help keep more plastic out of our waste streams, save restaurants money, and it keeps that waste out of our waterways and out of our environment. Thank you.
Discussion on the measure. Recognize Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the efforts of our dear senator to limit the effects of plastic in our environment. However, I was a caterer for 10 years, had my own business with my sister-in-law, and we had a lot of rules and regulations that came to us from the Health Department and from the Department of Agriculture about releasing the food that we had been serving to people in their containers or our containers, because of liability and because of what people did with the food once they left our dinner or catering or establishment. And lately, our local health department has been putting some very stringent regulations on organizations like the Museum Board, who has a potluck, that they're not able to bring in potluck dishes and they're not able to bring food from home and serve it in a public place. My experience makes me cautious about the effects of what this bill will result in. And I am especially concerned about liability issues for food preparers and restaurants. Thank you.
Additional discussion on the measure. Recognize Senator Hayden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 545 is brought to us. It came through the House Health Care Committee, or Energy Environment, I believe, and I did vote no on it. Sometimes I like to think of things in simple terms. And this morning as I was driving up here, I thought, if Senate Bill 545 were a band, what name would I give it? If Senate Bill 545 were a band, I think an appropriate name for that would be the Vectors. Thank you, Mr. President.
Recognize Senator Thatcher.
Thank you. I just wanted to get on the record that because we know this bill is going to pass, when Oregon Health Authority makes rules that they make it well known to the public, i.e. me, which of these restaurants will be accepting containers from individuals at varying levels of cleanliness and filling their food in them so I can avoid them. Thank you.
Additional discussion. Recognize Senator Linthicum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is my own opinion, but I think this is subterfuge. I think the single-use plastic paranoia has gone far enough, and we ought to be willing to let the free market dictate how they will or won't engage in providing containers or not. Every time you go to the grocery store today, can I charge you a nickel for that bag? No thanks, I'll just cloud it all out to my truck and throw it in, and we'll see what makes it when I get home. The interesting thing is Diane and I were on vacation in Hawaii, and Hawaii has, we were on Maui. Maui has a sign, plastic-free Maui by 2030, which isn't that far away. And when you're in Hawaii, everything is in plastic, from washing detergent, a hand sink, washing machine, to laundry, to shampoo, to thousands of little teeny bottles of tanning lotion, body lotion, you name it, it all comes in plastic. And so the concept, even when you go to Costco, you get a plastic jug of visible M&Ms because they're so attractive and so enticing. It's not in a plastic bag that you could throw away, would be easier to dispose of. A paper bag would work for that matter. But paper is verboten and plastic is in, and now we're trying to outlaw plastic. My dream would be that we would go back to paper sacks at the grocery store. They stand up firm, they hold their shape, they're easy to produce. We've got wood product industry here in Oregon that could supply more than enough toilet paper and sacks for the grocery stores, that we would be back in heaven's land compared to the mess that we drive home with in the back of our cars and trunks and whatnot. So I think the single-use mantra is a tragedy for everybody who lives in Oregon. By the way, Mr. President, have you ever had a drink and tried to use a non-plastic straw to enjoy your cup of coffee or your soda or whatever drink you happen to be purchasing with lunch? Within a couple of minutes, if you're having an intent conversation, all of a sudden the straw is falling apart between your fingertips. And the answer to that is what? Stainless steel straws that you carry in your back pocket? Really? Is this what we've gone to for solutions here in Oregon? I think it's a mistaken notion, it's a mistaken fear, and I think we should bust the seams on this so that the free market can deliver products safely to customers who want to purchase them. Thank you, Mr. President.
You, Senator, recognize Senator Dembro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I just wanted to share with you that yesterday in the Natural Resources Subcommittee of the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, we did hear, we're currently hearing the ODA budget, the Department of Agriculture, and they have been working on their rule for reusable containers at grocery stores. This came at the request of grocery stores that would like to allow consumers to bring their own containers as the consumers want, and they were prohibited from doing so. So ODA engaged on a multi-year, very careful study and development of rules around this, and it is now in place. And you know, again, it's completely voluntary on the part of the supermarket. If they want to do it, they can. If they don't want to do it, they won't. And they have, you know, worked with public health, everything to make sure that this is set up in order to be a safe practice. And this bill, I see doing something very comparable with the restaurants or takeout, fast food, whatever. And I encourage you to vote for it.
Additional discussion. Recognize Senator Boquist.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an odd one, so the Secretary better get ready. I would like to pose a question to the good senator of the committee who just spoke, and he is Senator, I'm looking to make sure I have the right name, the good senator from Northeast and Southeast Portland, and it's an easy question if he will entertain it.
Senator Denbrough, do you wish to entertain a question from the senator?
I will entertain it, and I hopefully will be able to answer it.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think he will, and I apologize for not giving it in advance, but you raised an issue that the good carrier and I have spoke about several times. Do you know in the ODA process that you're discussing, that your committee reviewed, did they resolve the liability issue, the issue of ensuring that the store or who might end up with legal liability in terms of, you know, some lawyer, we all know lawyers, suddenly says, well, I want to sue them because they got sick because the consumer themselves didn't wash it. Was there any discussion, or you know, in the Department of Agriculture in this regards? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Boy, that was 24 hours ago almost. My brain these days. It did come up, I remember, and the department did say that, you know, it was something that they had thought through, and they felt that the rules accommodated it, and if there is liability, it will be with the store, you know, who has chosen to do this. That's my understanding.
Additional discussion? Seeing no discussion. Senator Sollman, do you wish to close? She does not. The question now arises upon the third reading and final adoption of Senate Bill 545A. Those who are of the opinion that the bill should be passed will answer aye as their names are called. Those opposed, no. The clerk will please call the roll.
Hansel. Hayden. Jama. Knope. Lieber. Linthicum. Manning. Meek. Patterson. Przonski. Robinson. Brock-Smith. Sollman. Steiner. Taylor. Thatcher. Weber. Woods. Anderson. Bonham. Boquist. Campos. Denbrough. Finley. Frederick. Gelser-Bluen. Gerard. Golden. Gorsuch. President Wagner.
Aye.
Excused. Frederick. Gorsuch. Woods. Voting nay. Bonham. Boquist. Gerard. Hayden. Linthicum. Robinson. Thatcher. Weber. 19 ayes.
Senate Bill 545A, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Senator Boquist